Microphones are off. Okay. So I've got us all set up. And, okay. Well, welcome to everyone who is able to join us for this is the last moon call of 2024 that we'll do. As I said earlier, we've been doing this for over 9 months now. We started March 25th with that first eclipse earlier in the year, and we are ending up with a black moon in Capricorn. The black moon is the second new moon, whereas you have the blue moon is the second full moon, but the black moon is really a void moon. And I was just reading about some of it today. I remembered reading about it before, but I had to kind of remind myself about it a bit today. And people were explaining about the astrology of it and how that works and functions. And basically, it's it's kind of like the great mystery. It is the nothing. It's the all that is. It's like a big void. There's no energy there, and yet there's everything at the same time. It's all of the above. And I think it's a perfectly timed type of moon to have here at the end of this year going into next year with all of the shifts and changes that have been happening astrologically. And it really is setting us up for just a complete blank slate. I've said this before, but this one really is a blank slate. And yet there's a lot of powerful new beginnings with it. New moons are always the beginnings. And it's in Capricorn, so it's very grounded. And with Chiron just went direct yesterday, right here on this moon. And that's not a coincidence at all. Again, Chiron is the wounded healer. It represents the deepest core wounds that we come in here with individually and collectively. And it's like we're really giving up the concept of being wounded, or we have the potential to do that. And some people may ask, well, what does that look like? And yet, I can say, as I've continually gone through some of these energies and processes of my own in the last, even since the last moon cycle, but the last 2 to 3 months of 2024 have been kind of brutal for me in a way, and for a lot of people. And of course, it depends on how it's playing out, in your own progression of your soul and in your own chart, because we're all doing this very uniquely. But we're doing this individually, but also collectively. And so when you look in the outer world of form, lots and lots and lots of woundedness, of course, and it's all playing out. We're all having to go face the dark underbelly of everything we've ever been through eternity. And I've said this before too, and I really think this is very true, and it's worth repeating. I feel like this energy is kind of like a Bardo state, except we're going through the Bardo state awake. And for those of you not familiar with the Bardo state, Eastern spirituality would teach us that when we are preparing to go through physical death here to go back to the eternal presence, as we're going through, we have to recapitulate everything in our lives and in our soul journey up to that particular point of time. Of course, time doesn't exist, and yet we still have to go through the recapitulation. And look at that, 13. It never ceases to amaze me. So every one of you are the chosen ones to represent 13. Well, I'm making it 13 too. There's 13 of us, and I'm not a separate thing or anything, even though I'm hosting. But there's something about how we have to go through and recapitulate every single particle, every single thought, every single time we either chose to act consciously or unconsciously, really taking full and total responsibility for the entirety of who we've ever been as a single soul expression of existence within the oneness. And I know that may sound like a big deal, and it is a big deal. I mean, it's not something that we should minimize for any of us, I don't think. It's one of these things where we look at the totality of who we've ever been in expression, and we can look at all of the parts that were the good parts, the bad parts. Of course, we like to label things as good or bad, but nothing is ever seen in God's eyes, the all that is. That's not something that's projected onto us as a value. And this, I think, is where some of the spiritual, things fail, some of the religious teachings and things, because God's never in judgment of us. We are the ones that are in the highest judgment of ourselves. And we're really being asked in this black new moon to really just go into the deepest recesses of our being and release any last places of self-judgment. And this is not just in this particular lifetime. We're being, invited to go into, again, the totality of our complete existence, all the lifetimes, all the multidimensional expressions, past, present, futures, literally every single adamantine particle that we've ever held and expressed. And we've never been really taught that as a concept. We're not taught by anyone as a general rule to look at the totality of who we've ever been as a life expression. It's kind of like, some people have heard it. Oh, yeah, that's nice. I've been there and done it. And yet, I am continually taken into new, different places within myself that I just was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was there. Didn't know that was there. And, Judith did this journey for herself over 50 years of her life. And she really, even for herself, as much mastery as she went into, there were still places where she didn't, wasn't able to go in and shift and transmute those places because she did go into disease pattern. At the same time, she really taught some amazing, brilliant concepts and awarenesses to every single person that ever, worked with her over those 50 years. So it's like we're all looking at ourselves from a standpoint of the totality. And there's always the parts that we see consciously. They're the parts that Spirit will bring to us and put our little faces in it and say, now look at that little deed you did over there. Go face this. And we get it back as a cause-effect reality through a karmic expression, or what we would term as a karmic expression. But again, it really is still cause-effect reality. What you put out in the world, you get back. And again, we've talked about how we're leaving the cause-effect reality and just being in immediacy. And that really is, I think, one of the things that Pluto and Aquarius is going to teach us is just through immediacy. Pluto's birth, rebirth, transformation. And again, it's a 20-year process between now and 2044, I guess. Yeah, 20 years. And so while we've got that, we've still got the Pisces transition into Aries for Saturn and Neptune this year. It's going to dip back into, I think I went over this in the last call, but it's going to go into Aries for a little bit and then back and forth. And I won't go back into that again because most of you on this call, I think, heard that before. But you can re-listen to previous calls on this. But to sum that up, though, Neptune, the dream that we came in here with, and it's the past and present dream. Saturn, how we do the work on the soul level. But the other thing happening is the nodes. The nodes have been going back in Aries, and the moon's nodes go backwards. It represents the emotional self. And the astrologers are really going into this just like they did 18 months ago. They spent about 18 months going through a sign. And so it's been in Aries from June, July of 2023. And on January the 11th, just in less than 2 weeks, they're going to switch backwards into Pisces. This is a really big deal because it's taking the emotional body. It's been going from in Aries, the I am presence, and it's really been taking us into the core of our emotional presence, while Chiron has been doing this dance through Aries for the last several years. And it did meet up with the nodes. Chiron and the nodes met up. So it talked about not just past healing, but future healing, because with an emphasis on future healing, because the North Node was in Aries, so the South Node was in Libra. Libra is always about the other. The South Node is about our past. It's about our karmic inheritance, the genetic inheritance. All the stuff we came here to work with, but it's also our gifts. It's not just, the darker baggage. I mean, yes, we have to work with that, but we're also reactivating, the core of who we are as far as our gifts. And depending on how we place our focus, I really can't, I think, point this out enough, is that how we focus our attention is really what we're creating in our belief systems and in our reality. And as I say that, I mean, I'll go here, throw myself on this little altar of this. I mean, I have really had a hard time with this, and I think it's because I have a 0-degree Chiron at Aries. At the beginning of existence, I would have a 0-degree Chiron. But it has been an energy where I feel like I'm in constant death and rebirth. And that's what it's felt like for the last 3 months. And I remember when Jude used to talk about, each of us going through initiations. I mean, every human goes through their own initiations. I mean, we're not taught to look at them as initiations, and yet they really are. It's just that when you're doing it unconsciously, you let the energy kind of like blast you. It's kind of like dynamite charges that, we have set up in our soul trajectory where if we're not conscious about it, it's like the world implodes on us and it falls apart everywhere around us to wake us up. I mean, everything is always about waking us up. If you've been on a path of awakening for some time, then you're aware of the process as an awakening, event. And then you go in and you really start observing whatever's happening to you as the observer. And the more you go into the observer mode, you can see a bigger picture, and you see how the external world happening around you is really you still playing out in the movie of your life. There's never any separation. We're not here for other people to do things to us. There's absolutely nothing in our lives that are happening to us without our consent and that are not part of a pre-drawn soul contract that we came here to go through with the expression. The difference is how we perceive the processes that are happening to us. And then we either go into the victim mode and say, oh, this happened to me, or we can go into the hero mode and say, oh, I'm on my hero's journey. And in part of that hero's journey is reframing all of the different things that have happened to us and really releasing those core, how should we call it? It's kind of like there's a whole progression of things that wake us up until we get it, whatever it was that was, the purpose of the awakening of those particular items. Like, for instance, some people stay in habituated patterns in relationships, and they go from one relationship to the next one, to the next one, to the next one, and they never get the core lesson. And the core lesson isn't about the other person, it's always about us. And when we realize whatever that is within ourselves, and we go in and shift that dynamic consciously and really work with it, at that point we're able to start to build a new life, using all of our adamantine particles, using the totality of our life expression, our life force, to create something positive. And I hate to use positive and negative because, again, that puts us in duality. And that's really not where we're going, because we're leaving duality behind. We're coming into a full expression as individual expressions as an aspect of Mother, Father, God. It's not something where, we're never separate from Mother, Father, God, and we're not separate from anything or anyone else out there either. And I think that this is one of the things that 2025 and into the first half of 2026, but basically I think it's going to be these nodes in Pisces. Well, in Pisces, the opposite of that sign then would also be Virgo. So Virgo is the Virgin. It represents so many things depending on the interpretation you get. But it's kind of like Pisces is that, the hidden aspects of who we are. It's also everything spiritual. It's everything that represents the divine feminine and the divine masculine. It really is the search, the inner search, not just for ourselves, but who we are as God, as an aspect of God. And so we are attempting to purify. And what I think is happening is you got several things happening with that. Part of it, we're acting as a phoenix coming out and really sitting in the fire, the cosmic fire of our lives. And again, this can happen consciously or unconsciously. Things can come in from left field that we didn't expect, and just bring another shock to us. And again, for best results, do not attach to anything happening in your world. If it's something just external circumstances, just allow that shift to happen, because if it's happened, then you've brought it to yourself to clear something that you no longer need. And again, we're also making conscious decisions. What do we need in the material world? And so let's say that we are going through a time period where, and I really think this is Saturn. Saturn is the keeper of time. Saturn is the taskmaster. Saturn represents the father in the mythology and the deeper work we came here to do. So imagine that Saturn, going back through Aries, and a lot of this is going to be, Saturn through Aries actually goes, I think, through 2027, 28, because I get my Saturn return, I think, in 2027. But it's almost like a 3-year process of that Bardo state. And again, when we go through the Bardo state, they call it something like a 3-day process, like 72 hours, where we go through the recapitulation. Except I think it's going to be more like a 3-year process, because we're doing it in the physical. Jude always talked about we're staying in these bodies and we're going through an ascension process, but we're going to keep the body here. But we're going to embody we're going to go into our highest expression, but staying in this body. That means the bodies have to continually upgrade and shift to handle all of the energies that are coming in. Part of that's affecting us with the solar flares. Part of it is how shall we say this? The continual evolution of our universe as a universal expression. So because we're not separate, we are separate from other people because we have personalities, we have different bodies, we have what have you, soul contracts. At the same time, though, there's always a cyclical upgrade to life expression. Let's just say that cosmic expression. So as we are being upgraded, planets are being upgraded. Everything on the planet is being upgraded. We're going from carbon-based reality more into higher silicon, plasma-based reality. The light bodies are being more activated because we are taking more photonic energy, activating the light, which also clarifies the chakra system. At some point, we won't have separate chakras. We won't be operating from that. I mean, I think many of us are already in integration process as far as the way that we are experiencing our world. On that particular topic, though, and especially because we've all had most of us. I mean, some of us on the call didn't have Jude, but I think most people on the call lately have had Jude as someone to work with on a quantum level as far as healing and things like that. But we all come in, and I've said this before, with a blind eye and deaf ear. That's one of the Lazarus teachings that have been, I think it's a really core teaching for humans. And it's like we can always see pretty easily for someone else, but there's always a part of ourselves that it's almost like it's in a place where we just can't get to it, where the wisdom does not come forth, where there's some part of us that is always eluding our cosmic awareness, as it were. It's almost like we have a cataract third eye when we're looking at some aspect of ourselves. It's like some buried treasure that's way deep down there that we're always mining, and we just don't see. And even Judith had that for herself, a blind eye and a deaf ear to certain aspects of herself, because she did still create the disease pattern. And it does not mean that, that we don't still have a disease pattern, within the soul path. I mean, there still could be some things left to be processed out energetically. There's still maybe some really heavy karmic stuff to burn out. I would like to think that if we are attending things like this in group sessions, that we've done enough work where we're not going to have to go into a disease pattern. And the other part that I'll say with that too, with Judith, she really did do so much in large brush strokes with humanity as a presence. And so I have a feeling that the disease pattern came with some very deep complexities. And of course, when you look at an age, not the age exists here, but when you've got a soul that goes into late years, that they don't go through an early death. They go, if they're in their 80s, 90s, whatever. If you get to that particular point within the life expression and progression, if you do go in and you work with soul and spirit in the matrix on a really vast playing field. We're taken into so many places that most people really don't have awareness of. And I think that that's one of Jude's unique things that she came here to do in this lifetime, was bridging the gap between so many of the distorted and miscreated thought forms and patterns that we initiated during the fall of mankind. And this goes back thousands and thousands of years. And but most humans wouldn't even know how to articulate that. And a lot of people don't even know how to write about it. Now, there have been plenty of people that have written about it. I've read about it. Jude, of course, is taken into it. And so the point is with this, though, you did have a lot of people that came here that went into deep esoteric knowings and awarenesses to help assist humanity to get us to where we are now. And I guess the only reason spirits, I'm sitting here wondering why am I saying any of this? It's kind of like, and I've said this before, this isn't a me talking. It's kind of like we come together as a group, and it's like, what does the collective want to hear in this particular moment of time? And I just start talking, and this is what comes up. It really is. It's bizarre for me. It's like I'm here. I'm very engaged. I mean, I'm a presence as the me, but there's no me when this information just comes forth. And so it's kind of like to know where we are now. Sometimes we just have to go back for a couple of moments and remember the totality of how vast we've always been and what the journey has been. We don't want to attach to, thousands of years of lifetimes of miscreated thought forms and energies, and we certainly don't want to stay in any victim modes, and we don't want to stay in any patterns or anything like that, which I really don't think that most of us are. While at the same time, there's still very some core places where we may not realize that we've still got some sort of pattern happening. And when we go in and acknowledge the totality of who we've been as an existence, I mean, we may not actually sit there and write down all the different lifetimes that's happened, Aztec and Mayan, Lemurian, Atlantean. We may not have to go back and necessarily recapitulate all of that, and yet we can sit here and articulate it and say, when we're going in and bringing ourselves in to create this new powerful new beginning of life, we can absolutely go in deep gratitude for the entirety of the journey of the soul progression that we've been on, individually and collectively. And when you look at it from a standpoint of the 8 billion, souls on the planet, that's a lot of unique expression. And yet it's still a finite number. 8 billion is a finite number. It's not like trillion. It's not quadrillion. All these other numbers. As far as what they say, as far as physical human expressions that are here and born into physical bodies. When you look at the types of souls that are here and embodied, a lot of people talk about that we've been in the human soul expression, and we're here and we continually reincarnate to play out the soul progression. At the same time, you also have people that explain the complexity of the human expression. They will talk about when we come in from the other star systems, from Andromeda, from the Pleiades. There's a whole group of star systems that we can come in and have a part of ourselves as a multidimensional part that comes in here but can still express here. And I guess I bring that one up for one reason. I was looking at something in my chart earlier, and it's interesting that I had a reading from Carol Sidney. She was someone that Jude knew years ago, and she was just curious about if she could see something with me. And so I had a reading with Carol, and one of the first words out of her mouth, she says, "Oh, I think you're Andromedan. You're from the Andromeda galaxy." And I was like, "Okay, I've never heard that before." And what's interesting, when I pulled my astrological chart and I was pulling all of the, the asteroids and different things, well, guess what? I've got a whole Aries stellium, like 6 planets, objects, items, whatever, but all the big stuff, including my Aries sun at 2847. And what's interesting, the Andromeda galaxy is right there close to my sun. I express myself, I guess, through an Andromedan way, but she would have had no way of knowing that. She did not do astrology. She didn't pull the chart. But somehow her presence knew that my presence was highly activated from Andromeda. And I was like, that's pretty wild. Jude always felt like that she was from Arcturus more than any of the others. A lot of people have a proclivity to the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. And of course, all of these constellations have different qualities, very unique qualities in which we come in as human and we can go in and access and express when we're, doing healing work for ourselves and other people. And I haven't really gone deeply into the Andromeda stuff, and some people think, oh, that's crazy. But, you've got so many shows that are put together on television, and they talk about these types of concepts, and, of course, it's given to us as science fiction. But the ideas come from somewhere. You can sit there and label it as science fiction, but anything that's in our reality is there, and it's real. No matter what label you put on it, there's got to be some sort of frame of reference in why a human came up with the concept of, stargates, of all of the things that are in, quote, science fiction, reality, television, and movies. There's a basis to it. And the more that we go into our multidimensional awareness, the more we allow those parts of ourselves to bleed through. And it really takes us into the place where we really are able to own our gifts, and we're able to work with other people and assist in healing. So many times when we have these types of conversations, I know this isn't a conversation because y'all are not speaking back to me, but anytime we go into this, we're in a collective agreement to remember. We're remembering. So you've got the all these words, rewrite, remember, reevaluate, it's all that stuff. And so it's just a reawakening. We're just remembering the vastness of who we are. And I think sometimes when I go into these really deep places where I'm taking our minds and our hearts and our souls with regards to the vastness of who we are as an expression, I think those are the most healing moments that we have, because it really allows us to give perspective, of who we are as a divine expression. It's like, we're not just, whoever, a yoga instructor, or maybe a professor at a university, a business owner doing whatever business you do, a plumber, electrician. Pick whatever it is. I don't think we have any plumbers or electricians, but and then but even for people, that come in, they have come in with a more divine feminine. I mean, there's some women that have never actually done a job a day in their life, and yet the life expression didn't come here to do that type of work. They came here to go through and be more of a divine love aspect with their family and friends and communities. And so, and again, we're living in an unlimited reality creation. Every single person came here to be and express themselves in a very unique way. And I think that there were a couple of things that I had sent out in the email that were really just cut to the core of who we are just as expressions. Let me see, what was the one here? A couple of things. Matter of fact, I'm going to read a couple of them. So here's one. This one says, whatever happens, stay alive. Don't die before you're dead. Don't lose yourself. Don't lose hope. Don't lose direction. Stay alive with yourself, with every cell of your body, with every fiber of your skin. Stay alive, learn, study, think, read, build, invent, create, speak, write, dream, and design. Stay alive inside you. Stay alive also outside. Fill yourself with colors of the world. Fill yourself with peace. Fill yourself with hope. Stay alive with joy. There's only one thing you should not waste in life, and that's life itself. And that is from Virginia Woolf. I was like, wow. I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm dying, and yet I know I'm not. But we're always going through a deep death and rebirth process. And again, that's Pluto. And Pluto has just left Capricorn, and yet it's at the very beginning of the Aquarian part, or who we are as an expression, from an Aquarius type thing. So in that, though, I still feel like we're going into a much more conscious awareness of aspects and parts of ourselves in the death and rebirth process. I think we're attending the death of who we've ever been in every given moment of time, and I think that can be very jolting to the system. It can be jolting to the soul. Yeah. And here's another one that's just really, it's just kind of like, okay, so this one says, write it on your heart that every day is the best day in the year. He is rich who owns the day, and no one owns the day, who allows it to be invaded with fret and anxiety. Finish every day and be done with it. Let that one sink in. Finish every day and be done with it. You have done what you could. Some blunders and absurdities no doubt creep in. Forget them as soon as you can. Tomorrow is a new day. Begin it well and serenely, with too high a spirit to be cumbered with your old nonsense. This new day is too dear, with its hopes and invitations, to waste a moment on the yesterdays. Ralph Waldo Emerson. It amazes me how many little parts of, poetry or writings from, this is 100 years ago, some of these things people write. And it's kind of like, how did they have such clarity back then? And more importantly, why aren't things like this taught today in schools? Why don't we teach that as a regular thing? We don't really think of all of these things. Another one that's really there were some things that really spoke to me, and I do have these included in the emails for you to go back and check back in, but they really just spoke to my core with what we're doing with this moon. So here's one from Michael Markham. This one says, objectified memories are dispersed like fragments across the brain, and in their interplay and reflection, a holographic figure shimmers into existence, a construct the brain labels as, quote, me. It says, this self, born of scattered recollections and associations, takes shape on an internal stage illuminated by the light of the brain's processes. It begins to move and act, and the brain, captivated by its own creation, mistakes this intricate dance for an actuality. As the self solidifies in the mind's narrative, it inhabits a conceptualized map of the world, believing this pseudo-reality to be its true home. It ventures out into this managed terrain, interacting with a reality filtered and shaped by the brain's objectifying tendencies. Yet this self is not a fixed entity. It is a story ever-changing, constructed moment by moment from memory, perception, and thought. A few brains, rare in their programming, question the relevance of this imagery character in its fabricated world. Now let that sink in. They turn inward, seeking to uncover the truth of the self and its place in the grand design. But this inquiry, though compelling, is destined to fail. The self cannot transcend itself, for it is nothing more than a mental fabrication, a flickering image within the hologram of existence. The search reveals not answers, but the futility of seeking as the realization dawns that both the seeker and the sought are born from the same illusion. That's some pretty deep reflection there, and they really just. I mean, as I read, it was bizarre. I mean, I usually don't find a lot of things like that, but these things just really spoke to me as so potent and as pure meaning. I mean, obviously, there's never any mistakes, and when Spirit wants you to see something, it's going to put it right in front of you. And but there's so much wisdom in those things. Again, I mean, these are included. I've got them at the end of that email that. It said it was like 30-something pages. I went to go print it, and I was like, good Lord. But lots of powerful stuff in the email that I sent to you guys. But there's this other one I really want to read because I think this is, I mean, it really speaks to me because of what I've kind of been going through in the last few years with everything. But this one is called Procrastination. And I have a feeling it can really speak to you or someone that you know to really be a powerful knowing, but also to give some wisdom here. And so this one says, procrastination is not the absence of will. It's the presence of pain, a quiet signal of a battle fought in silence. It is not laziness. It's the weight of an invisible storm pressing on the soul, a resistance born not from the boredom, but from unspoken wounds. We procrastinate not because we don't care, but because we care so deeply that it immobilizes us. Each delayed task whispers a fear of failure, perfectionism masked as avoidance, or the simple exhaustion of a spirit too weary to carry the load. Procrastination is the heart's way of pausing, asking, are you sure we're ready for this? But here's the breathtaking truth. It transforms once you meet it with understanding instead of judgment. Like a river unblocked, the energy that procrastination held captive begins to flow. It reveals that the time you thought you were wasting was time spent holding space for your own healing. And then, almost like magic, it dissolves, not through force, but through love. You awaken to the realization that time was never your enemy. You forget how to waste it because every moment, even the quiet ones, becomes sacred. Procrastination isn't a flaw. It's a map leading you back to the places within yourself that ache for your kindness, courage, and light. Listen to it. Heal through it. And when you emerge on the other side, you'll find a version of yourself you never knew you were becoming. A self unburdened, unstoppable, and free. So I found that those spoke to me just so deeply, and I hope that that they really reverberate in your own heart and soul, and even if they're not necessarily something for you, that they'll be meant for someone that's in your own life to share with, because there's really, this moon is taking us to the core of who we are, and it really represents, again, the black moon is like the totality of the unfathomable. That's what Jude used to call the presence when we would go into all these things. And it really is taking us into a deeper awareness of our stuff, whatever the stuff is. There's one more thing. There's nothing to read from necessarily, but I had a conversation with one of my friend Claire's friends in New Orleans, a guy that she's gone to a couple different things, but he had suggested that I buy a book. It was called The Spiritual Laws of Life by Harold Klemp, Klemp. And it really is, it's a very interesting thing. It's kind of like, it's not like the books of Ra, the Law of One, not necessarily something like that, but it's from a teaching group. I forget what the name of it is, like Eckankar study. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but it's like spiritual understanding of who we are as an existence in relation to the Creator, and it has their own interpretations of it. But so I've read about half the book, and it really brings a lot of good clarity. I've released a lot of places even where I've had some stuckness, and it really takes you to your core. If you're looking for something to read, I found this one on eBay. Different places are selling them off pretty cheap. I mean, it's funny how many people don't want to spend money for, or they don't charge a lot, I guess, for some of these spiritual books that were out there. But it may not resonate for everyone either. But I've been really moved by the book as far as at this particular point of my journey, releasing some additional things. So if you find that that's going to be anything, potent for you, then that's, something else to share. So I really did not imagine speaking that long on things today, but there it is. Another part that's really potent, to what's happening right now is I think we're going to have a lot of souls that are going to jump that didn't necessarily think about jumping. And I say that because one of the astrologers that I've read over the years, and I actually had a reading from him just 2 years ago, Tom Jacobs, he was always one of these really deep, extra, soul-level astrologers. And he would take people in, based on what they were talking about, in their own life, and he would really take them into some deeper places. And he was, I guess he's 4 years younger than me, but just last week his wife got on, or actually life partner, whatever her name was, Jillian, and she announced that he had passed away peacefully in his sleep. And he had like, I guess, some lung stuff here or there that had come up. But yeah, and everybody was shocked and like, oh my gosh, what's that about? And he had done a lot of really deep work and writing, a lot of research on Chiron, and also with Black Moon Lilith. And these are two of the major things that a lot of astrologers don't. I mean, Chiron, everybody really goes with Chiron pretty good. Lilith is another one of the mythologies that they don't really go too deep in, but he did. He actually sent reports for like a 5-year time period from like May of 2022 to May of 2027 for me. That's one of the things he would do. And I've been rereading those things. This is 2 years ago I got these, but I didn't pull them out until recently. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's kind of like time travel. It's like we find whatever we're supposed to have when we, in the timing we're supposed to get it. But I've been going back and rereading those things, and he had just started. He was going to be doing a program where he was going to have people go into Lilith and Chiron and be doing deep healing journeys with them. I mean, he's had, thousands of clients too. I'm sure hundreds at least. I don't know. But at 52 years old, just goes to sleep and does not wake up one night. And I kept thinking, what on God's green earth is that about? You've got someone that's here. He's evolved. He's assisting people and going in and doing soul work. And I went back and re-listened to, it was a 40-minute reading. It was supposed to be 30 minutes, but we went 10 minutes over. He said, he was just loving the conversation. So we just went on. But it was interesting how, here he is getting ready to go take people into a deep journey with themselves, and yet he takes himself out. And it kind of made me just kind of go in and ask, what is it about, our soul contracts that, we just get taken out, when we're supposedly going along and we're doing the higher path stuff and we're healing this and helping this person do this, and all of a sudden Spirit just takes us out. It's like, what's that about? And it's one of those things where it's like, it makes no sense. And yet it's like, when I observe something like that, it makes me wonder, was there a place where the soul made, took a wrong turn? Not that there's a right or wrong turn per se, but was there a choice point where if they had chosen differently, that they would have been able to go into, like for him, would he have been able to stay here and go through the deeper part? Was there some place for him, with his own blind eye and deaf ear, where he didn't go in for himself, and where he was in denial of some aspect of himself? And so there was, the point where he just chose to go out. It really makes me just question more and more. Obviously, I don't go look for answers on these things, because you can't understand someone else's soul journey and what they came here to do, and when they choose to go out. And of course, we don't know when we're going to go out at any point of time. And he didn't go out through some awful disease pattern. He just came up with some bronchial something, I think, from what she had said, and then just boop, and bleeped out. Now, I will say it was heart. And I bring this up from the standpoint of, I don't know if he had the COVID vaccines or not. And one of my cousins and I have talked about this quite a bit, because she's got a pharmacologist for a cousin. And, a lot of people have talked about, the COVID stuff, and I don't want to get into a whole big thing on that, but there's so many things out there where people have talked about time release death regarding the COVID vaccinations and the mRNA and the way it affects things. And some people had mentioned that by this time, which would be coming up, 2024 and 25, there would be a lot more physical death in heart events that would take people out. Shockingly, young people, and it would be complications due to these vaccines and things. And again, I'm not going for or against anybody either way. I mean, everyone has to do what they want to do. I mean, I'm staying away from the medical world and all pharmacology by my own personal choice, based on years and years and years of research. But also when you hear all the side effects of the synthetic creations in that world, I just bring these things up to just ask whoever the listener is on this at any given point of time, go in and do your own research and ask yourself what's the truth for you. And do question why so many young people are dying with supposedly inexplicable reasons. That's the only thing I will put out as an inquiry. It would be for an inquiry for whoever you are as a listener at any given point of time, so you can ask yourself what's the truth for you. And there's something about where we have to go in and face the totality of who we've ever been, as far as the miscreations and the distortions. And Pam Gregory is another astrologer. I meant to actually pull a couple of her videos. You just go to pamgregory.com, or she's Pam Gregory on YouTube. I think several of you probably have listened to her and enjoy her as well. But the last few videos she's had are just spot on with just going into a deeper awareness of what we're doing. But this Pluto in Aquarius, I think, is taking us into we have to face the deepest aspects of truth. And you're going to continue to see, because Pluto in Capricorn went into the structures, but it went into the structure of everything. It went into the structure of false reality. And I think we're going to have more and more of that fall apart. I do think that Neptune and Saturn are going to be playing a dance with each other regarding illusion, what is a false reality, regarding what's real. And I think that we're going to be taken into some shocking revelatory truths with regards to what has been told to us historically, what's been presented to us as history, and what is not history. There are a lot of different people that are putting out YouTube videos regarding things like Tartaria. I don't know how many of you have a familiarity with that, but it explains a different version of history with regards to who we have been, even in the last 100 years, and how there has been a distorted truth presented out as a reality. And I think a lot of these things are going to be coming forth, and we're going to find out things about who we have been, even much more recently as 100 years ago. And there were so many things that were wiped away as far as awareness, and it's more recent than you would think. And I think the disempowerment happened much later than earlier versions would talk about. So be open and be curious with your soul going into this year. That's part of what Pluto in Aquarius is going to do. And everything that's happening with Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius, this is a 20-year process. So when you look at the astrological stuff happening, Aquarius is 2 signs away from Aries. That means that Pluto in Aquarius is going to be sextiling Aries, the whole sign of Aries, for 20 years. So if you have a lot of placements in Aries, or if there's a lot going on, which is also Saturn and Neptune are going to be going into Pisces. During these journeys, and this is going to go on for, I'm trying to remember, Saturn gets through Aries a lot faster through a sign, I want to say it's, I don't know. I can't even project a value. I don't remember it enough to tell you. You can go look it up. But Neptune is a longer transit, and so we're going to be dealing with functional energy, though, sextiling energy. Trines are, and of course, this is all angular. Just a quick astrology lesson. So you have oppositions, the signs that are opposing action to each other. Aries, Libra, Cancer, Capricorn. Those they create an axis that we operate on as far as the awareness of who we are. And so whatever your sun sign is, the opposite of that is going to be the opposite of awareness. And wherever the nodes are, they operate in the polarity. Then you have, of course, oppositions. Oppositions are usually difficult things that we have to work through, but they don't always have to be difficult. A lot of times it just brings up energy that's workable, but they're very powerful because they are an opposing force. Next, of course, workable energies. You've got, well, I guess in degree, 120 degrees is trines. So you take the 360 degrees of the chart and you divide it up, and you get 320 pi. It's like a triple pi. But trining energy is very flowing energy. It helps work with things. So that's when you have grand water trines, grand fire trines, earth trines, air trines. So when you have Aries, Sagittarius, Leo, those are all fire signs, you have a grand fire trine. And depending on what's happening, those things can be easily flowing energy. It can help us, more beneficially. Squares are more challenging. Those are 90 degrees. There are four of those quadrants that line up. But squaring energies can be a lot of challenges. It can be all things like that. Sextiles usually are more flowing energies as well. And I mean, it's kind of like there's a little bit more, not challenging aspects to it, but it's more work to be done, but it's flowing work. Let's call it like that. Then semi-sextiles are the signs right next to each other. Those are, it's kind of like more minutia. It's like we'll find details of, aspects of ourselves that we may not see as easily or be able to work through, but it's still crap we've got to do. Then the sesquisquares and the quincunxes, those are more like bizarre angles. Like they're, what are they? Like, I forget the degrees, but they're off by that. They off center the signs by 15 degrees, so they split into a sign and go into another sign, and those can provide a lot of complex energies. And not that most of you are going to want to get into any of that, but the point to this is this: that there are, for 20 years, because Pluto is going to be sextiling Aries, which is the I am presence, it's going to be a relief from where Pluto was in Capricorn the last 16 years, which was squaring all of Aries. And so the last 16 years have been very challenging to who we are as an I am presence in the world. We've had a lot of work to do. Pluto in Aquarius, sextiling Aries, is going to be an easier energy to work with, I think. And so it's going to be easier working with Saturn and Neptune as far as the angles. And because Chiron is still in Aries, the I am presence, that's the healing that we come here to do. Our core wounding, individually and collectively, I think is going to get a big boost. Now, it doesn't mean it's going to be all pretty energetically, but it does give us the capacity to go in and heal in ways that we never dreamed possible. And because Pluto in Aquarius, I think it's more cosmic healing, but it's going to happen on in a larger scale. It's going to happen because of those planets that are there. But Aries is the I am presence. And of course, it's an opposition. Aries is opposition to Libra, which is the other. But I think overall it's going to really lead to a lot of more amenable energy, workable energy. It's going to have to do a lot with oceans. Now, if there's going to be some challenging aspects, Pam Gregory talks about, she thinks there's going to be a lot of water, things happening with water, not just all bad things, but also good things happening. A lot of people are going to be cleaning up oceans. They're going to be, helping to undo the distortion and the miscreations that have happened on the planet with regarding the water. But that's also going to be us. We're 70% water. So we really have the capacity to go in and do some really deep healing work. On a quantum level, I think there's going to be a lot of medical breakthroughs. There's going to be a lot of technological advances within this next year. Things that have been out there and talked about, I think they're going to come to light. I think that it's going to also be a new creation with regards to financial systems. I mean, they talk about that a lot. I don't know what it's going to look like. I do know that the current system is not sustainable. And so I think that we're really going to be going into a different system. I think countries are going to be going to different systems. And as far as, I don't think we're going to go into a new world order thing where they're going to have one, thing. But I'm not going to get off on tangents like that. But the only reason I really bring that up is to say that the energy astrologically is favoring a more positive approach to mankind and our evolution than a devolution. And I think that's a really important message for us to hear right now as we are leaving 2024 and going into 2025. I don't care what's going on in the projected mainstream media world. We are invited to take our sovereignty back, to take our own power back, to stand in our own power. And it doesn't matter what's happening in the dog and pony show of the world. It just doesn't matter. The political world is going to implode on itself. It's been doing it for a long time. Do not attach to what you see out there. It's not real. It's an illusion. The more that we can know that we are creating our own reality and we participate in it differently is really how we take our power. And anyone that's attempting to draw you into trauma, drama, it doesn't matter what form it takes. It's taking away from your own vitality. It's taking away from you and your future. Think about those 4 things that I read. And again, those are listed at the end of the email that I sent out to everyone. Reread those and take time as you're reading them to really feel into the meaning behind them. I mean, they can really assist you in reprogramming your reality and releasing some of the old patterns. I mean, they're powerful. It's funny. I mean, I'm not usually drawn to things like that. I'm just sitting there scrolling through stuff, and it's like, boop, that popped up, and I was like, oh, got to share that one. And so I sent them to myself in email, so I wouldn't have to go find them again. But I mean, when I really just sat there and read them quietly and contemplatively, I mean, really contemplate the deepest meaning of it and let it permeate your cellular memory, because we really are. I can't tell this enough. This Capricorn black new moon, it's a void. It's like it's the nothing and it's the everything. And it really is seeding us to go into a healing like we've never thought possible before. So, okay, at an hour and we're 18 past 9 now. Wow. I've never talked this long with just a talking part. I think we're pretty much saturated on that point, though. So at this point, I want to really take us into, into a healing, a quantum healing, a quantum shifting, where we really can assist each other. Again, this is all frequency, and I will, I'll say it again. I've said this almost every call. I try to remind people, I am not doing something to you in these calls. I mean, I organize the calls, and I set them up, and we all come and attend, and it's kind of a difference where Jude would say she's going and working on us, which she was to an extent. I'm approaching this from a completely different way. This is something where you're healing you. I'm not doing anything to heal you. All I'm doing is bringing a vibratory frequency to this call, and each of us are participative in the frequency of the call. You are absolutely 100% responsible for any healing that happens to you in this call. This is something that your soul contract came here to do. This is part of where I feel like when we had done the workshops and retreats with Judith before, there was, and again, it's a subtle shift, but it was a place where there's no me here. We really are all on an equal footing here. We're each it doesn't matter who listens to this call at any given point of time, no matter where you are, you're at a vibratory rate that something will be here for you. For us that are doing this call live, we are all at a particular progression of the soul that is in a place where it is going to go through the maximum healing at this particular point of time. And the frequency of the healing in this particular call is just where it's at. There's not a value to be placed on it, and it's also open-ended. So whoever finds this call, the information that you hear will be exactly what you need to be at that particular moment of time. This meditation that we are about to go into, and it will not be a long one tonight because we've already been shifting and working with our collective presence during the call. As Spirit has spoke, and I've said whatever has been said through my voice, whatever has been an eternal truth for you will be an eternal truth. If it's been a momentary truth, it will be a true thing for that moment, and whenever it shifts you, it will pass away and it will just leave. And that's one thing that we're learning to really step into is how do we know something for that moment and release it? Because we don't want to hold on to anything. That's really what 2025 is starting to take us into, and that's immediacy. Because in immediacy, the past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. The only thing that exists is this particular moment. And as we release all of the old structures, storylines, perceived grievances, pains, whatever else, we're releasing the pain body. Whether you realize it or not, you have released a huge part of your pain body just in listening to this call. Whether you choose to know it or not, may be it where you are, as far as where you are in your journey. I'm telling you, and your soul knows it though, that you shifted. And as we continually go through the progression of the way we perceive time, we will continually heal exponentially fast whatever needs to be healed. The liver regenerates itself every 90 days. I think that there's going to be an acceleration on that. I also feel like there's going to be continued potential for cellular regeneration in all aspects of the physical body because of the plasma light that's coming in and hitting the planet. There are also technological advances with med beds and other things that I think also are going to do frequential healing on people that will take us into places we've never dreamed possible before. But on that note, what we will do is get quiet and go in just for a few minutes, because I don't think we really need a lot, to just really ground in these frequencies that are coming in, all of these light codes, all of these huge M-class flares. This is happening in the whole solar system. It's happening in the universe. Everything is really becoming technicolor, cosmically alive. It's always been that way, but we're perceiving it more and more. And because we're perceiving it more and more, it's shifting us. And again, it's all a reflection. As we go deeper into the reflection, from a cosmic awareness, we are met through the cosmos. And that is what heals us. It is where you are in your own soul progression along with creator presence, however that looks like, however you want to articulate that. So let's go really deeply into this. Again, there's no place to go. And it's not like we're not already there. We've been in this frequency for the entirety of this call. What used to take us several minutes or an hour or so for a meditation is more immediate now. This is what, if we have worked with Judith, this is what she trained us for. And this is how she assisted each of us in our journeys in those particular moments of time. Except this is the acceleration that she always talked about. If you're really good at tracking energy, you may be able to perceive the acceleration of the particleization. You may be able to perceive the spin, the particle spin. You may have a very deep awareness of who you are within the entanglement. A very deep awareness of, and not a separation awareness, but the totality of your energy field within the moving cosmos, within our galaxy, within the Milky Way galaxy, within our universe. This awareness has always been here. It's just now that the stargates, as you would call it, would be opening up greater and greater and greater. Because humanity is at a tipping point where it's ready to open up, to heal on core levels and layers that it never was before. This has always been true, but it's really, really become the time for mass multidimensional healing. As the time-space continuum continues to break apart, and each human being goes deeper and deeper into just immediate awareness, it'll continue to release the old stories, and one day you'll just be in this space and you won't even have a reference for what the old was anymore. You won't have a reference for the pain body that you carried for eons of time. You won't have a reference for the perceived somebody done me wrong song. Whoever and whatever it was in your life. You won't have a frame of reference anymore for the family trauma, the wound from your parents, the wound from the grandparents, from your friends, from your spouse or different spouses. You won't perceive a separation from anyone in your life, anyone that's ever been in your life. Whether they did something, whether you did something, none of that exists. The history will cease to exist. Do you feel how lighter you are on a cellular, on the atomic and subatomic levels? On the molecular level, do you feel? Do you feel how transcendent you are as a life expression? This is what you came here to do. This is what every human comes here to do. You are not your history. And this is what this particular moment of time brings us even through the astrology. Even the system of astrology will go through a huge metamorphosis very soon in the way people perceive it, the way they use it, the way they perceive themselves through it, and the function of it. Humans are rewriting their reality by leaving behind old, false storylines that never existed in the first place. Can you feel the cells in your brain even releasing all of those concepts as these words are spoken? There is so much that's leaving each human being individually as well as the collective false narratives. There are so many levels and layers to the distortion that oceanic presence is just wiping away, just like they never existed. Perhaps you can track how much faster you've gone into a deep meditative state with tonight's call than you have in the last 9 months. It's all immediate. There is no separation. None whatsoever. There never was any separation. If anything that you've heard during this call does not feel right to you, put that in the trash. Just because something's been articulated may not be a truth for you. Perhaps there's been something that was communicated here that was just a bit off. Perhaps it wasn't the most deepest eternal truth. If everything here did shift your perception of reality and assist you in releasing old, distorted thought forms and miscreations, then it's done its job in this particular moment of time. Anything that is of deep cosmic awareness and that is coming as an assistance in shifting the way that you as an individual or as a group perceive reality, if any of that that's been presented in this particular call is meant to stick around as a long-term awareness, then it is an eternal truth of that moment. Who knows, maybe next year, next month, you'll release everything that got said in this particular call because it no longer is valid. It's no longer needed to assist you in any transmutation or any more release. You're all learning to engage the matrix of life in a completely new level of awareness. This is how you take your power back. And again, as something comes up, if it's been something that has been a pain, either mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, just let it come up and be released. You no longer have to identify with anything in the pain body. You are not your pain body. Are you able to really track how you've shifted since the beginning of this call? You are not who you were when you began the call. Part of Pluto in Aquarius is becoming aware of every nanosecond of your life, of every micron of creation, taking totality, full responsibility for the totality of your life. There's no longer anything to reference in your past. It has served you well. It has served you all well. Each of you is particular human being expressions, but also collectively, all groups of humans are releasing collective stories. Many are still stuck in those stories and still playing out the stories. But we would tell you, you no longer have to stay tied to those stories. You can walk out of those stories at any time. Every nanosecond of your existence. Can you feel the hyperfluidity? Really feel the hyperfluidity of your soul expression. That's what this particular moon, this new black moon, is igniting. "2025 will be whatever you make it to be. You're that powerful of a creator." Many people will create the miraculous, or the seemingly miraculous. But then when some people are creating those things that appear to be new, all you're doing is re-remembering that you always knew how to do it in the first place, whatever it is. You've all had some very powerful calls that you've attended in the last 9 months with this series. This is probably the most powerful transmission that you've ever been given as your group. And imagine this is just the tip of the iceberg. Take that in. Fathom that. Could each of you go out into the world and initiate your own telecall? Do you have the capacity to go in and start a group with your own family and friends? It doesn't have to be a formal setting as this, but of course this isn't a formal setting. It's more of a structured setting because it's a telecall. But how many of you could go in and just be this awareness for your family and friends and business associates and whoever? This is always the point. It's never about the host of a group. It's never about the teacher of a group. It's never about staying in that place, because that would mean that you don't grow and evolve. Teachers have students. Students become teachers. But will you have the capacity to go out and do this for others? Where you're so healed completely internally that you then become the teacher. As you go in and contemplate this brand new time and space, ask Spirit to work with you consciously and very actively in creating your new reality. Create with the unseen world, with the magical world. With pure balance of heart and soul from a very healed place. Take time and go into deep gratitude for all of you that have come in and chose to attend the call. You've all chosen to raise each other's frequencies to a place where you each heal to the next point of soul awareness. As you continually do this, and you do it exponentially, the healing capacities will exponentially come forth towards you. This is the way the vibratory frequency rate works. This is what you're all remembering to do. And so again, just be in deep gratitude for the presence of everyone that's been here in this particular moment of time. And be in gratitude for the eternal spirit that allows all of you to come together to share this energy and this healing individually and collectively. And then send that out into the entire universe. Don't forget to drink a lot of water and keep hydrated, because that's how electrical impulses best utilize the body. It's through the water. And you may be hearing hunger pains in this particular body. All sorts of shouting and distortion, although I'm not particularly hungry at this moment, but all this energy work is very deep. The bodies are continually shifting and changing. And so the food that you put in to nourish your cellular structure will need to continue to go through deeper and deeper clarity. Do not be hard on yourself as you make new choices and attempt to have better diets. Eat lighter foods, eat whole foods as much as you can. To be supportive. As usual, you're always encouraged to stay in this deep meditative space as long as you can to allow these energies to really ground in this particular moment after these calls. So if you can just stay in your bedroom, in bed, couch, wherever, just stay in this wonderful space of bliss. Eternal love and infinite gratitude and blessings to you all. And welcome to your new highest creations of energies in 2025.